This is one of the richest countries on earth, at least on paper. The Democratic Republic of Congo is sitting on an estimated $24 trillion in untapped mineral wealth, including huge reserves of coltan, cobalt, diamonds, and gold. So, why are more than 60% of its people living on less than $2 a day, trapped in crushing poverty? That question leads us to a dark paradox at the very heart of our own global economy, and it proves that when it comes to a nation's prosperity, geography might be a devastating curse. Hi everyone, this is George Economou. I'm a PhD economist delivering knowledge you will find nowhere else. And to make that possible, subscribe to my channel. You will help my videos be found by more curious minds like you. Now, back to our analysis. It seems like the world's most obvious formula for success. If a nation finds billions of barrels of oil under its soil or unearths mountains of diamonds, it ought to be wealthy. That new wealth should, in theory, pave the streets, build gleaming hospitals, fund world-class schools, and lift everyone out of poverty. It's the lottery ticket theory of national development. A country strikes it rich with natural resources and its problems are solved. But what if that entire assumption is fundamentally wrong? What if for nations discovering a treasure trove of resources is the worst thing that could have possibly happened? The world is full of countries that are fabulously rich in resources, yet home to some of the poorest people on the planet. This isn't a rare exception. It's a disturbing and persistent pattern known as the paradox of plenty, or more bluntly, the resource curse. So, how does this curse actually work? It poisons a country from the inside out, attacking both its economy and its politics and its institutions. First, there is the economic sickness, a phenomenon called Dutch disease. The name goes back to the Netherlands in the 1960s, right after they discovered massive natural gas fields. A flood of foreign money poured in to buy the gas, which caused the value of the Dutch currency to skyrocket. Now, on the surface, a strong currency sounds great, right? Wrong, because it had a catastrophic side effect. It made all other Dutch products, from tulips to machinery, suddenly way more expensive for the rest of the world. As a result, their manufacturing and agricultural exports completely collapsed. The Netherlands became dangerously dependent on its gas exports, and when those markets dipped, the entire economy was thrown into chaos. This exact scenario has played out with far more tragic consequences in other parts of the world. Take Nigeria, for instance. For decades, it's been one of Africa's largest oil producers. But as petrodollars flowed in, its once thriving agricultural sector withered away. It actually became cheaper to import food than to grow it. The country is now almost entirely dependent on its oil, which, while it makes a lot of money, employs very few people compared to farming or manufacturing. So, while a small elite gets rich from oil deals, widespread employment simply stagnates. Venezuela's story is even more tragic. A nation sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserve was driven to complete economic ruin and hyperinflation when its total dependence on oil prices finally caught up with it. But Dutch disease is only half the story. The political decay is often far more corrosive. When a government can get rich just by selling what's in the ground, or actually underground, its relationship with its own people fundamentally changes. Why go through the hard work of building a diverse economy, supporting businesses and collecting taxes, when you can just cash a giant check from a foreign oil company? This easy money creates what's known as a rentier state, a state that lives off external rents instead of its own domestic productivity. This breaks the most basic social contract. When governments don't need to tax their citizens, they have very little reason to be accountable to them. that vast concentrated wealth becomes a honeypot for corruption. Politics stops being about governing and becomes a violent winner-take-all fight to control the resource money. This is called rent-seeking. Instead of building institutions that serve the public, elites create extractive systems designed to funnel that money straight into their own pockets. Over a 25-year period, Nigeria earned over $300 billion from oil, yet it still has some of the worst human development indicators in the world. The wealth was there, but it never reached the people. It was captured by corruption and mismanagement, leaving behind a legacy of instability and poverty. What you end up with is a vicious cycle. Resource money weakens the broader economy, which then fuels corruption and hollows out political institutions. But does it have to be this way? Or have some countries found an antidote to this curse? We will get to that secret of how to turn a natural blessing into real prosperity, but first, if you're finding this look into the hidden force of our global economy valuable, take a second to subscribe and hit that like button. It helps us keep investigating the questions that matter. The resource curse is not a law of nature, it's failure of policy. And the proof lies in the countries that have managed to turn immense natural wealth into lasting prosperity for all their citizens. The textbook example is Norway. When oil was discovered in the North Sea in the 60s, Norway was already a stable democracy with strong, trusted institutions. They saw the danger coming. Instead of letting all that oil money flood their domestic budget, they made a brilliant decision. They created a sovereign wealth fund, now called the Government Pension Fund Global, which has become one of the largest in the world. The oil revenue goes directly into this fund, which is only invested abroad. The government is then only allowed to spend a small fraction, around 3% of the fund's annual returns. This masterstroke separated the volatile oil money from their economy, preventing that disease, curbing the temptation for corruption and forcing them to keep managing their traditional economy. The oil wealth isn't treated as a slush fund for today, but as a nest egg for generations to come when the oil reserves finish. But you don't have to be a wealthy European nation to get this right. Just look at Botswana. When it gained independence in 1966, it was one of the poorest countries on earth. Then, massive diamond deposits were discovered. By all accounts, Botswana should have been a classic victim of the resource curse. Instead, it became one of Africa's greatest success stories. Like Norway, Botswana had competent, forward-looking leaders who built strong institutions before the diamond boom really took off. They enforced the rule of law, protected private property, and made a deliberate choice to invest the diamond money into public services like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. They built a stable partnership with mining companies and managed the nation's wealth with transparency, making sure the country's diamonds benefited the whole country, not just corrupt few. So, when you contrast the stories of Norway and Botswana with those of Nigeria and Venezuela, the real truth becomes clear. The single most important resource a nation has isn't under the ground, but the quality of the institutions it has built above it. Geography doesn't determine destiny. Governance does. And if you need one final piece of proof, look at the four Asian tigers: Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Taiwan. These places have almost no significant natural resources to speak of. They had no oil to sell, no diamonds to dig. Out of pure necessity, they were forced to invest in the only resource they had, their people. They poured everything into education to create a skilled workforce. They built strong, reliable institutions that protected property rights and upheld the rule of law. they pursued a strategy of export-driven manufacturing, building complex industries from scratch and plunging themselves into the global supply chain. Their success proves that a lack of resources can actually be an advantage, as it forces a country to develop the sustainable, diverse, and human-centered economy that is the only real path to long-term prosperity. And that brings us back to the beginning. The Democratic Republic of Congo sits on $24 trillion of potential wealth, yet its people remain poor. At the same time, Singapore, a tiny island with virtually no natural resources, has become one of the wealthiest nations on earth. The paradox isn't in the ground, it's in the choices we make. The resource curse teaches us a powerful lesson. Real wealth isn't dug up from the earth, it's created. It's created by stable, accountable governments. It's created by the rule of law. It's created by investing in the health, education, and ingenuity of a nation's people. Today, as new discoveries are being made in countries like Guyana and Namibia, they face this exact same crossroads. Will they fall victim to the old curse, or will they learn from the history? Because the ultimate determinant of prosperity isn't the country's geology, but its character. It's the strength of its institutions and the foresight of its leaders that separates the rich from the poor, turns a simple rock in the ground into the foundation for a flourishing nation. See you all in the next video. Bye bye.